Thursday. Just waiting till we connect on LinkedIn. Bear with me for a second. Happy to be back. Happy Thursday, everybody. Government is open today. What do you guys think of that? People are back at work. It's kicking. Yeah, so maybe all those flight delays are not going to be in delays. Here we are. We're live on all channels from YouTube to X to Riverside to LinkedIn to Twitch. Hey, everybody, I'm Stefan Rust. I come to you every Tuesday and Thursday and give you an update from what's been happening in Truflation and on the Truth Network. Yeah, so glad to all be here and yeah, keen to focus on events upcoming. It's a brutal environment out there right now. I really appreciate everybody being patient and holding to the guns. Now the markets, it's really weird. Why is the stock market down when the government's back? I would thought everybody would be happy that when the government comes back, that everybody's going to be bullish around that fact, number one. Number two is, despite the fact that they're not going to be reporting data, that they will be paying out the tariff dividends that we talked about on Tuesday. Anyway, it's Thursday, November 13th, and I come to you every Tuesday and Thursday at the same time, and which is right about now. We talk about, today we'll cover off the anticipation of the non-existent inflation number from the Bureau of Labor and Statistics and what our interpretation of that number is. We will also go into a view of what the state of economy is. And then lastly, I'll sort of come in and share with you some of the alpha, how you can use some of the inflation data or other indexes that are available on Truflation to find an edge and identify and score some alpha. Anyway, that's what I'll be talking about, and how to do that between Truflation and Polymarket, and maybe in that extent also Kalshi. So happy Thursday, everybody. Stefan Rust, founder of Truflation and the Truth Network, which powers and provides the underlying utility for Truflation. Anyway, so a couple of things just to share. Noise, news, activity out there. We saw what's happening, a product from StableWatch. I don't know if you've heard of them, StableWatch HQ, a interesting new emerging research company around stablecoins. Clear, informative. Here you go. You can watch that narrative. Clear, informative, and opinionated. And here what they do is they talk about debasement, benchmarking your YBS portfolio. Anybody know what YBS stands for? I don't know. Yield-bearing stablecoin. There you go. Your yield-bearing stablecoin portfolio. That's what you get here. Okay, that must be that. But here, if you go down, they talk about debasement. What does that mean? Money printer, go burr, which ultimately drives inflation, et cetera, et cetera. But what we are really excited about, they start talking about the government inflation numbers, the PCE, and then here,
You're not live.
Yep.
Not live.
Got it. Oh, sorry, guys. I wasn't live on Twitter, but I should be live now. How's this looking? Yeah, now I'm live. Okay, shoosh. Sorry, guys. I forgot to hit the one of the buttons. Anyway, you missed that. Stefan Rust here. Just a recap. You'll have to go watch the edited version. Sorry, guys. A bit late on the live side. Or maybe it's in a huge time lag and it's just catching up. Anyway, this is a tweet, a really detailed tweet by StableWatch HQ on Twitter, on X, debasement benchmark for your yield-bearing stablecoins. YBS is what that stands for. I didn't know that until I predicted it and got it now. But here, the interesting thing is they look at government inflation numbers and what really drives that. They look at the different indexes that associated inflation. What's there? They talk about the PPI, which we talk about as well, and they talk about the PCE. And by the way, all of those available 24/7 on Truflation.com. And here they come into the Truflation US Inflation Index, right? Launched in 2021. They've identified 18 million price points over 60 different data providers, 12 categories, et cetera, et cetera. Public providers, you got it up here. Truflation metrics are available through a paid API or on their website. So on the website, it's free. If you want the API and the underlying data sets, you pay $500 a month for that. We're looking at our pricing based on what you think. What do you think? Is that cheap? Is that expensive? Let me know. Give me a comment here. Hey, Sophia, not live on X. Thank you. I just fixed that. Thanks a lot for that heads up. So lack of quality adjustment mechanism. The methodology does not seem to address quality adjustments in goods and services. That has been updated. So we have addressed all of that. And you can see here, when you come to the Truflation Index over here, I got to find it. I just had it open. Yeah, here, come here. Look. You can see index Truflation is saying it's at a 2.55%. And you can see we've got goods and we've got services. So, and you can see goods. Goods have been going up and growing faster than overall headline inflation. And the services have been staying pretty flat and slightly below inflation. And that's what gives us the median there. And I'll come into why that is and what that is a bit shortly. But just coming back to this X post here, flawed housing data representation. Oh, thanks for that update. It's not flawed, right? We've got a different methodology and we work with Penn State on that. So you can see over here, go to Truflation.com. You can come onto our website. You can go to our resources. Where is our blog? I have to go to the footer blog. So I have to come down here into the blog and Truflation Penn State Housing. Pennsylvania State University and Truflation collaboration, revolutionizing housing inflation measurement. So we've worked with some of the brightest minds out there and disclosed how we calculate inflation. So check it out if you want to find out more for the housing sector, right? This is super detailed for the housing sector. You can see it all here. So again, addressing some of the critics that haven't actually done their homework. So maybe I shouldn't be promoting this article and Stable Watch that much. Maybe don't follow them because they don't seem to be doing their homework too well. Not so good. Nein, das ist nicht gut. Anyway, thought they were good, but so I'm just going to move on from that because they don't seem to be talking about too much and have done their lack of chain price techniques. What's that? Truflation does not update basket of goods and services to reflect changes in consumption pattern. We don't adjust for the seasons, right? We just keep it going straight and we do not adjust for the season. And so that's what we do. We use AI. You can take our data, run it in through using MCP. You can run it in your LLM and do your own calculations, your own regression analyses, etc. So we make this available for anybody that wants to build on that. Inflation adjusted returns. I don't know what these are. They're looking at stable coins again, debasement. They talk about it here. Anyway, that was sort of what those Stable Watch guys do. Not too impressed, to be honest, about that. But anyway, check them out. It's somebody, they don't have that many followers, but I thought it was actually really good. But I changed my mind. And after doing the research and looking a bit more into the homework, they haven't done their homework as I just shared with you. Why not? Again, you can see here, and just to confirm what I said earlier, that we and the market knows that we do not do seasonal adjustment, right? Truflation does not seasonally adjust their data. Very clear. We've told everybody. It's public knowledge. So if you do your research, you find out about it, you now know we do not seasonally adjust our data. Truflation is excellent. Thank you, Michael. And Michael will be joining our spaces on the 25th. So follow the spaces on the 25th. But please don't be fools with the data. So do your homework. Exactly. And then another expert, Andreas Stena Larsen, interesting high frequency. Our data is reflecting what he's been saying for 2 to 3 months. And as we know, we are 45 days ahead of everybody else. So anyway, that's just some context and some background on all the things that we've been working on, and some of what the market's been saying. And I'll come to a bit more, some insights on alpha, but you have to stay tuned and watch the rest of the show. And if you haven't smashed the likes, following us, and subscribing and adding comments, here we got some more comments. Good morning, Mr. Roost. I have a lot of questions about Truflation. Shoot. Rudradev Singh, please. Some questions include, what is the difference between price stats and Truflation? I respected that Truflation made a lot of progress in Bloomberg, but it seems that Jerome Powell see price stats. Yeah, I don't know what Jerome Powell uses, and I think Jerome Powell says he uses a lot of data. They use public data, which is from the BLS, the Bureau of Labor and Statistics, and they use other data sources. That they have claimed, and that's what they've said. Maybe they do use price stats. I don't know, but price stats seems to be just a reflection of what the government is saying and not their own calculation. What Truflation does is they calculate our own perception of where prices are moving to. And we've got our own basket. We've fully disclosed. We write it to the blockchain. So everything else is out there. And that is different from price stats. Yeah, take a look. That's my view on that. But more importantly, we were supposed to have an inflation read today. It ain't coming. Why is it not coming? Because of the government shutdown. And you can see on truflation.com that the government is shutting down and is still shut down. It's coming live today, but ultimately they haven't been collecting any data. We all know that. And so as a result, there's nothing really to report. And here you can see shutdown today, is offline for 43 days and 17 hours. They come live today, so that would be the last day. 43 days shutdown, new record, all-time high achieved for a shutdown. So that's pretty cool. Yeah, we can do a bigger difference. Interesting. He explicitly said, so Radurev, thanks. He explicitly said during the conference, he uses price stats. Would you go into more in-depth report on the difference between price stats and Truflation? Yeah, happy to do that. We'll take a look into that. Last time I looked, price stats was just reporting government numbers based on that. Yeah, so that's what is going on. Yeah, it's interesting. There's a conference right now in Miami, so some of our community is going to be there. Tom Lee was there, and Tom Lee was talking about Truflation. And I have to share this picture. Sorry, guys. I'm going to do something that. And I'm going to share this picture with you. One of our community members is there. I won't tell you who because he likes to stay a bit in the shadows. But here is what where are you? I got to, sorry guys, bear with me. Open file. I'm going to open this one here. Bang. And sorry, hang on, guys. I'm just doing this, but we will get back to you and answer your question in more detail. So whilst Jerome Powell and the government still uses that number, there was a big conference in Miami, Cantor Fitzgerald. They're associated with Howard Lutnick, where he was the CEO before. They're helping a lot of digital asset treasuries with their listings and their management. Yeah, so and here you can see Tom Lee, who is the head of FundStrat. What does FundStrat do? They advise a number of funds on what strategies to deploy. And yeah, so you can see here he's giving a presentation, but more importantly, what does he share in that presentation? He puts up a slide that crypto native is greater than TradFi. Polymarket, Truflation, and Tether side by side next to each other. Ultimately, Truflation is far more efficient than the government institutions or than price stats, I would guess. Otherwise, they would be using price stats for their strategies in their recommendations to some of the fund managers. But anyway, I thought this was really interesting, and you can see this this here, and so it's pretty interesting what's going on here. Take a look. I think I'm a bit behind. I don't know what you're seeing in the stream. Let me see. No, you're still behind, so you're catching up. Anyway, that's. I thought that was really interesting. But anyway, I want to come back to the government inflation number. So Truflation in true style is always out there, and basically, I'm just going to walk you through what our inflation. So some relief, but only briefly, right? So we are actually forecasting a slight drop in inflation down to 2.9%. And yeah, you can see this here. I mean, it's sort of in line with market expectation. And here we said 2.9 to 3.1%. Competition and consumers changing purchasing behavior supported by downward pressure. So ultimately, competition has been driving down the prices, and the consumer purchasing behavior has supported this, right? But ultimately, due to that fact, the consumers beginning to buy more, getting ready for the holiday season, it has an upward risk, right? And so we've had a significant decline in gas prices. Sorry, guys, I've got some cables down here again. Goods and commodities. So if you go to Truflation over here, you'll be able to see, what are the goods and services. I shared that earlier, and you can see how good we are at predicting. So I mentioned earlier our prediction. So we said 2.9, and you can see we're better than anybody else. We have our 45-day lead time, which you can see in the graph over here. So you can see the 45-day lead time. But more importantly, look at our accuracy, 0.010101. So we are very much, last September, we were on the money with the forecasting of where the BLS will come out at. And they're getting worse and worse, as we all know. Their numbers are getting worse. They're getting less consistent to the extent that they can't even report. But if you come to the Truflation site, so here, again, I was talking about goods and services that they said in the Stable Watch, we don't break out. We do break out, right? Here you can see the breakout goods, services, right? And so we can see goods are above the headline inflation and services are below, right? And so ultimately it balances itself out. And what does that mean with the goods, right? It seems the goods are going up. And we can see in the presentation, Oliver says commodities and tariffs are making an impact. So that's why maybe the goods are going up. Prices of commodities have been going up, and the price of goods have been going up. Services, wages are still holding, and so that's why the services category is a bit flatter. And you can see here another Truflation graph, which is visualizing when you export the data, you can then have it and customize the way you want to present it and use it in whichever calculation you want to do it. Energy, continued price increases natural gas. So you can go to truflation.com. So over here, you can come to truflation.com and you can see the gas prices. How are gas prices evolving? You can see that here. And when we talk about gas, we mean utility costs, but also pumps at the gas station. There's greater demand, more outgoing in terms of people using that. Natural gas futures, the gas futures are up significantly, spiking up in price. Yeah. And all the meanwhile, global trade seems to be picking up, and we'll come to that a little bit later as well. Yeah, so that's that. Tariffs, again, talking about the tariffs. So there's a whole webinar. So if you sign up to the Truflation, you can actually get an invite to this. We had over a large volume of participants and then asking our data team a lot of questions around this, right? So China's current reciprocal 10 to 10 fentanyl tariffs, Trump's tariffs, so you can read that there. Mexico has temporary pause on the tariff, 30%. So Mexico can actually import now with no tariffs. And then there's a whole thing around Supreme Court decision on the validity of reciprocal and fentanyl tariffs. Interesting. Yeah, let's see what that happens. I think the key driving factors: food, transportation, household. And those are the biggest. Household durables less so, but food and transportation have the biggest impact on the cost of inflation, right? So here, come to my Truflation. I can see US inflation index here. I can have a look at that. But also, I can just go to my watch list. I can see immediately here, US inflation index. I come to US inflation index. Boom, I see what is the composition. And I can see food over here. Food is 15.3%. Transportation is another 20% roughly of household spending. And you can see the cost that's come down. Public transport has really come down, maybe due to the shutdown that not many people are there. And so that has not been recorded as there are no buses driving around. But in essence, that's sort of, you can see coming back to the presentation that those food and transportation combined is about 35% of household spending. And so if those come down, they have a significant impact on inflation, hence our forecast of it coming down. And this is basically always looking at government numbers versus our own. Apparel is up. Apparel's tiny, is maybe 2% of household spending. Utilities is going up. That's the cost of gas. So here you can see the cost of gas. You can see this on truflation.com. Go to truflation.com, see the price of gas, and you can see that going up significantly over there. But the interesting thing is, apparel is being imported, a lot of import driving there, and you can see the markets are picking up. Global trade is beginning to pick up here just at the end. Have a look at that. And you can see that same being reflected on Truflation. We have the Drewry Container Index. There you go. You can have a look here. Drewry World Container Index. So this identifies what is the occupancy rate within the containers, right? And based on the occupancy rate, what is the cost associated with the container? And so you get all of that here inside the Truflation dashboard. So you have a look at that. And then again, that's sort of what we're covering. Fog thickens, right? We know that there's no data out there, so it's getting a lot harder to pull together the data. Nobody's doing that. You see the Atlanta Fed. You can see here reopening on the 12th, on the 21st, the reporting comes through. What are some of the reporting numbers that are hugely delayed? What's coming? If the November 17th reopening happens, of course, we're on the 13th, so it's right in the middle. We can see employment numbers come out on the 19th, 26th, yada, yada. So you can see these numbers here that are coming. But estimate GDP growth, 4%, right? We've been talking about the new 3 and 5, right? So we think that actually GDP, with all the productivity improvements, AI gains, and investment in infrastructure, will skip up to 5%. And we'll see inflation at 3%, but growth will be at 5%. As long as we have that consistency and that transparency, then people know about it. So growth will continue to be outperforming inflation. Unemployment is around 4.3. Wages are going to hold pretty steady. around 4.5% growth in inflation, so slightly above GDP growth. So that's good for everybody. Corporate earnings are good. And Federal Reserve meeting will be a balancing act. So we'll see that in December when the Federal Reserve meets. And what will that mean for inflation? So actually, I think that they're going to drop interest rates, but let's see what our team doesn't necessarily think that. Labor markets holding, but when cooling occurs, it can move very quickly. So if the economy doesn't keep up at 4 to 5%, ultimately the labor market won't hold that rate. And so the whole goal is to hit that rate. But you're seeing huge amounts of investments going into the US. You're seeing huge rollouts of new infrastructure, phenomenal productivity gains, and a growth in the small, medium businesses. That is going to drive new job creation that happens in small, medium businesses, not in big companies. And right now, lately, the big companies have been getting all the headlines with their job cuts. But actually, the growth of new jobs is not in big companies. So you don't see that. You don't see the headlines. But all of these small, medium businesses that are growing are hiring and capturing new upside. As long as that growth continues to happen, those small, medium business companies, small, medium businesses, they grow, the more jobs are going to be created. The more venture capital being deployed, the more small, medium businesses are scaling. The more small, medium businesses scale, the more jobs get created again. And that's why and what is holding the economy together. And you saw, we announced the employment data. So that is now live. You can see the employment data, and we are sharing it in our employment index. You can go to the website and read more about it. There is a concern about credit card debts. It's growing again, so it's picking up. You can see here where and what all the debt is. It's mortgages, it's student loans, and mortgages is the biggest portion. Student loan the next, auto loans, so for the car, and then credit cards, and then you get to the other, right? And so those can be buy now, pay later. Those can be all sorts of direct loans. And you can see the total household debt is continuing to grow. Since 2014, it's been on a growth sprint. Average balance is about 6.5 thousand, so 6,500 per household. And yeah, so it's growing. 60% of users have revolving debt. So they go from one credit card to the other. Consumer credit risk, 67% cite insufficient income. So it's all about the income. We have not seen a compensation in income. Delinquency seems to be growing, so be careful of that metric. That's always an interesting insight. So here I have Radhurev Singh again asking another question, more personal. I went on the Bloomberg terminal and downloaded all the Truflation data from there. The number I see from there looks different from the information on the website. I don't know if that's the case. It shouldn't be, because they're pulling it from our API feed. So it should be the same. So I don't know where they'd be getting the data from if it weren't from there. Was it the latest updated? I can have the team look into that, but it should be the same. So yeah, about that. So that's pretty good. Anyway, we'll have a look into that too, I guess. So there's two actions items, a comparison between price stats and Truflation, and then what's going on with the Bloomberg terminal. We just spoke to Bloomberg, and they're going to have our employment index up there pretty soon. So I don't know, we'll check the API feeds, but they should be coming from the same database. They're all reading the same data, so it should be the same. Another question is here, the criticism, Truflation's monthly adjustments for weights, as people claim it causes volatility at the beginning of the month. Yeah, so yeah, some of the categories are heavily dependent on, so health category, we are heavily dependent on government stats for the health and education, and that has a significant impact in trying to smoothen out the volatility around early parts or end of the month, and the team is working on that. Yeah, we'll keep you posted on some of the updates there. Again, October, small relief. Here, actually, I'm just gonna capture these questions. October, small relief gas prices. So MMM. So we still see inflation ending up the year with a 3.1% towards the end of the year. So again, we always look out quarterly, and we're going to provide a 2-year prediction going forward so that we can give you a better feel of why and what we think are going to be the drivers over the next 2-year period of time. Really hard thing to do, but yeah, that's what we'll be working on. Corporate earnings are still pretty strong, and this is something to monitor if that doesn't change. But we're coming into the fourth quarter. Fourth quarter is notoriously a strong season. Money printer go burr, interest rate come down. The tariff dividends. We don't see the economy going in any other direction but forward. So that'll be pretty interesting to see. And yeah, I just wanted to share that with you. The team puts together a more detailed report, so you can read all of this about it in a detailed, how many page report? 12-page report. So if you're interested in that, this will be made available shortly, so you can then have a look and track across all categories. Yeah, that's sort of the inflation report. This is the time of year that we do that. When the government shut down, we're still open. So we like to share that with you. The other thing we look at is, one thing is we were looking at some of the opportunities. We are talking to the Agricultural News Network, which I mentioned last time. Wow, I don't know if you can hear that. Sorry, but there's somebody drilling in the building here. Yeah, really annoying. Anyway, we got the Truflation eggs index, one thing. So we've been doing this, trying to look at a breakfast index, right? So we have been working on a breakfast index. What does that look like? What do you mean breakfast index? Well, we've broken down the categories of breakfast to include milk, corn futures, orange juice, live cattle, for bacon, feeder cattle, soybean, wheat, sugar, oat, coffee, and chocolate, cocoa. So we've blended an index together like this. Right now, what does that look like? This looks like, over here, you can see the breakfast index in the dark blue, and then basically Bloomberg commodity indexes in the light blue. And you can see the commodities index has been rising. And that's where we see in the future, inflation will start picking up due to the rising commodity prices. And here, however, due to the time lag and due to competitive pressure, the goods in the market that people pay for breakfast has been coming down. Coffee and cocoa, as you know, have seen spikes in the past. And yeah, so that's something that we need to pay attention to and take a look at. But yeah, just some of the creative things we're doing. But what that did do is open our eyes to our egg index, right? So we have an egg index, which has a multiple different set of suppliers. So we have 4 different data suppliers here: Nielsen, Numbeo, BLS, and the USDA, Drug Administration. And so Department of Agriculture, sorry. Yeah, and so here you can see where that comes out at. Here's the Truflation Eggs Index. You can see it's been bottomed out at about 354 and slowly picking up to about 370 right now for the dozen of eggs. And then if you come across over to here, Polymarket, they have a question: what is the price of a dozen eggs in October? Why October? Because ultimately they're leveraging the BLS to provide them on the November 13th, which is today, which isn't going to happen, so they can't settle and close this market. They're providing the source of truth for what that price will be. And you remember, over here, we saw it never go below 350. So even if you take it in ahead 45-day lead time, it's still maybe on the downturn to coming down, but it was bottomed at 355. So if that's the case, what is the odds over here? We have a $3.50. Let's buy $20 worth. If you buy today $20 worth, it will pay out $178. So you can actually make a significant upside on this. And if you buy at 375, you'll make $188. So I would go for this bet, which I did do yesterday. I tweeted about this. I made about a possible, I've already made 100 and it was 330 the return I win if it hits this mark. But I can trade that and sell my position now and capture the profits that I've already got. So that's a way for the retail market to take advantage of Truflation's leading economic indicators over that of the Bureau of Labor and Statistics, which is being used as the source of truth over here. So you can see here, price of dozen eggs in October. What are the rules? This market will resolve to the bracket within which eggs price, US city average, lies when October data point is published by the St. Louis Fed, right? But the St. Louis Fed bases its number on the egg prices of the BLS CPI release. And unfortunately, that release isn't going to happen. Currently scheduled for November 13th, resolution of this marketplace. So they cannot resolve this until it's published, which who knows what. But there's about a daily volume of about $100,000 in here. Yesterday, when I looked, it was $60,000. So that jumped for something. Anyway, there is a way to use Truflation as a means of an indicator for all of you that are playing in the prediction markets. And maybe, what do you think? Tell me what you think. Should we be adding predictions here that allows you to predict on a daily basis where the Truflation eggs index is going? And you can actually come to truflation.com and predict around all of this economic data. Let us know where and what you think of this. Yeah, I don't know why. Yeah, so Rudariv Singh coming back. Correction, it's price stats and Adobe inflation index that Powell cited. Sorry. Why is he not using Truflation? I don't know. I guess we're too competitive. He doesn't like us. We're not a big brand name. I don't know. But ultimately, Price Stats is owned by State Street, so heavily tied to the financial services industry. And Adobe Inflation Index, I don't know where they're getting their numbers from, but ultimately, it's a private company that has nothing to do with inflation index. But Adobe is a software company that is doing PDFs and design tools. And they're going out of business anyway because everybody's using Figma and it's all web-based. So I don't know why he would be going to that and why he's not using Truflation, whereas all the smarts in the financial services industry is and are using Truflation. Anyway, hope you found that interesting. There's lots more of news that we've announced. Built by Gouldsby. I can link to the website. Sure. Yeah, we'll have a look at it. Thank you. Please send the link and I'll go take a look at it. And we'll do a session where we compare Truflation, price stats, and then this Adobe Inflation Index. Thank you, everybody. You can see here lots. Follow us on Twitter, on YouTube, all the different channels, and look forward to coming back to you and seeing you next Tuesday on the other side of the weekend. Stay safe, hang in there, and see you on Tuesday. Thanks, everybody, for listening, and have a great weekend. And yeah, we'll come back to you in response to some of your questions. Bye, everybody. Bye for now.